Welcome back to the People Development Podcast brought to you by Living Water Consulting. Hey, on this podcast, we believe that growing yourself is actually best achieved when you help to develop the people around you. I'm your host, Harrison Tash, and with me today is former Navy SEAL Commander Chris Irwin. And I'm going to read the description of Chris Irwin so that you can understand how important of a conversation this is. Because we dive into the 5 mind killers. And then we also dive into the answer to how to get past these, how to work towards a better way of thinking, and how to be mentally, physically fit. So, Chris Irwin, as a retired Navy SEAL commander, has decades of elite service, leading special operation teams and earning multiple military honors, including 2 Bronze Stars for Valor. After his distinguished military career, Chris transitioned to leadership in business as the former president of Killcliff and now serves as communications director for the Navy SEAL Foundation. Hosting the acclaimed On the X podcast, and as an entrepreneur, mental fitness advocate, and founder of Rare Sense, Chris brings unique insights into leadership, teamwork, and resilience for a remarkable journey. And we'll have in the show notes of where you can get a hold of Chris. But we're going to get started with this podcast, and I know it's going to bring tremendous value, so stick around.
You don't want to never count yourself out, make it a great one. Just be sure to leave out the doubt, time to wake up.
Chris Irwin is here on the podcast today, and I'm just super excited. I've had a lot of good opportunities to have some conversations here. And so, Chris Irwin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because a lot of what we're talking about, I think there are a wide range of people who struggle with just this, their whole thing is like, it's up here in their head. Mm-hmm. And it's how do we battle this? How do we work ourselves past some of these things that are seriously start right here up in our minds? So I'm super excited to talk about this. But before we dive into some of these mind killer framework and a little bit of your story and all these things, I'd love for people to hear from your mouth, kind of like what got you to this point, to where you're wanting to help people with this, and clarify a little bit of what you do today and what got you here.
Mm-hmm. I know you'll have spoken about this in the introduction, but I'm a retired Navy SEAL. I spent 14 years on active duty, 6 in the reserves. And I'm somebody who, when I was getting off of active duty, this is back in 2000, this is almost 15 years ago at this point. I can't believe it's been that long. Yeah. But back in 2011, I was physically pretty much unscathed. I think you would look at me from the outside and think, physically fit, no problem with any of my lab work. I was lucky in the fact that I hadn't been seriously wounded or injured or anything like that. Pretty unscathed, I would say, physically. And that's just a matter of luck, quite honestly. But mentally was in not a good spot and had a number of things going on. There was some survivor's guilt, and these are clinical terms in a lot of ways, but as we understand it, as people might relate to it, had some survivor's guilt. There were a lot of guys I knew that hadn't survived or were severely wounded in combat or in training. And so that kind of weighed heavily on me in a lot of ways. Kind of started to feel like, and some PTSD as well, again, as we sort of define those things. And those conditions kind of started to snowball on themselves a lot. And it developed into kind of this health anxiety stuff where I would notice kind of internal sensations and think the worst of them. Think, oh, that's the indicator of some yet to be determined fatal condition. And I think some of that was based on survivor's guilt of just thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't be around because like these other guys didn't make it. I'm not any better than them. Like, why am I still around? And so as a result of that, I didn't know it at the time, but I started having panic attacks and I started having dizziness and cognitive problems and that can snowball on itself when you go down that rabbit hole. And it got so bad that that I became largely incapacitated at times, like almost what you would think of as like a nervous breakdown. But I have this story that I relay about coming home one day, like right at the end of my active duty time, and I collapsed on my front doorstep and I'm crying kind of in the fetal position. And my son, who was my oldest son, who was 4 years old at the time, walks up behind me and he's looking at me, kind of doesn't understand what's going on, and looks up and down the street and then looks back at me and he just says, "Daddy, there's no monsters out here." Because that's all he could
Oh,
think of was like, I'm afraid.
right.
And I just looked back at him, I pointed to my head and I said, "No, buddy, the monsters are in here."
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I knew that I was struggling in that way, but I really felt ashamed of it. It's one of those things that you're not supposed to, coming from my line of work, it's like, you're not supposed to have mental problems in that way. Um, the quote unquote problems, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I mean, I got off active duty and I didn't really address it. I just kind of kept it to myself, did what I'd been trained to do, which is suck it up, suffer in silence, just deal with it. That's kind of the one tool we have. That's mental toughness. Suck it up.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, this is what, I think of heroes like you and others that have fallen before us. Like that's what made them great,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like that's almost a given. So
Well,
yeah,
it's I mean, so this is, I think this is one of the big issues with mental health, mental fitness, which is the realm that I now work in. That I've kind of redefined this or looked at it differently, taken a different vantage point on it. But it is one of the downsides to mental toughness because that's such a prevalent message these days. You
right,
hear so many people say this, like mental toughness, mental. People almost use it as a synonym for mental fitness in my estimation, and it's not. It's, to me, it's one component. It's a very
right,
useful component in order to get through spec ops training, whatever that is, whether that's SEAL training or, you know, becoming a ranger or green beret, whatever, or a firefighter or something like that. You need to be able to endure physical pain and continue the
right,
mission. That's a really important skill. The problem is that we then apply that to every problem we have in life when it comes to some kind of mental thing, right? It's just the only solution is just suck it up. And it doesn't work in all circumstances. This is a really big
right.
lie that is perpetuated out there, I think, in modern culture. That doesn't solve all your problems. That doesn't
Yeah,
address every issue that you're dealing with. And in a lot of cases, it could make it worse. And we know that it doesn't work because the veteran suicide rate is astronomical at this point. The stats that I quote are in the 20 years of war post 9/11, Iraq and Afghanistan primarily, we lost 7,000, roughly 7,000 service members in combat.
jeez.
In that same time frame, we lost 147,000 veterans to suicide, veterans and service members. So that's a 21x increase. So
Jeez.
21 times more likely, if you're in the military, 21 times more likely to take your own life than be killed by the enemy, right? Your mind is that much deadlier than the enemy. And yet all those
Yeah,
people know how to suck it up. They know how to be mentally tough. That's what got them through training in the first place. So
right,
that's not the answer. That's not the
right,
solution there. And this is what I had to kind of go in search of, was what are the other tools out there? Because in my estimation, they are scattered, they're sort of, discombobulated and all over the place, and there isn't any kind of cohesive thing that says, okay, here's all of this stuff that can make you mentally fit. It's kind of
yeah,
piecemealed, and it's this like jalopy of like, hey, we're going to tack some meditation over here, and we're going to throw some hacks over here, and we're going to dunk ourselves
right,
in this water, and this,
yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. And yeah, first off, thank you for your service and thank you for being vulnerable to share those kind of stories. And I had the privilege of reading that story of your 4-year-old saying, there's
Yeah.
no monsters day. Like and to me it's just puts light in a place that most people probably don't understand or know, including myself. And the thing that I'm really looking forward to is you helping us through this, because I think there's so many people that go through some of this, these mind wars, if you will,
Mhm.
um, that never went to battle, but still battle these kind of things. And that's what's
Of
so great
course.
about what you're doing, because it's across the board. And I love that it's for veterans. I also love how it's applicable to the everyday Joe like myself.
Yeah.
And so today, tell us a little bit about what you're doing today before we move into, some of the things that you've come up with to help us in
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. So just to kind of close out this story there a little bit, and that
Yeah.
example is, so just to give a real world example, and you think about somebody who has gotten to the point where they think about taking their own life, which I got to,
Yeah.
and they're sitting there with probably a bottle of Jack Daniels next to them. This is a dude. So, if it's a woman,
Got
this
it.
probably, and honestly, this is probably more of a male scenario, but like, whatever it applies to the individual, the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sitting there with a bottle of Jack Daniels next to them and a pistol in their hand in a chair and just sort of contemplating that, or sitting in their car or something. And if the message to that person is, suck it up, go harder, like, what does
Right.
that even mean in that context? Like,
Yeah.
that's a terrible message. Suck it up, suffer in
Right.
silence.
Yeah, they're
Awful.
broken, right? I
Right.
mean, you
Well,
were broken.
they're not broken actually, but
Sorry. Oh,
but
sorry. I'm using the wrong
yeah, yeah,
terminology
yeah. No,
here.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, it's okay. Like, that's part of my message is you're not broken. Like,
Yeah.
you're not, it's not something to fix necessarily. It's, you're out of shape. You're mentally out of shape. Um,
Yeah.
but like, that's a horrible message to send to people. Like, suck it up, suffer in silence. That's awful. That's not what we want to tell those folks. So look, I had that kind of thing. I came out of the military and then just again didn't know what I was, just was kind of like dealing with stuff on my own for years. And then I had this mold exposure in 2016, which just sent my health completely off a cliff, where I was completely incapacitated at times, like couldn't think, couldn't stand up, spent entire weekends on the couch, like full blown chronic illness. And I went down all these rabbit holes. I mean, I went to the sort of conventional medicine, couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They're like, you're fine. Like, we can't find anything wrong with you. No help. I then went the alternative medicine route and tried every quote unquote crazy treatment you can think of, whether it was lasers or magnets or, I mean,
Mm.
you name it. I tried it literally, like human guinea pig for years. And some of that stuff had some impact. I'm not saying it was nothing did anything there. There was definitely like a toxic load that was part of the equation here for me as someone who was in the military and was exposed to a lot of toxins and burn pits and all things like that, and
Mhm.
even viruses. And you could even go down the vaccine route here, and not to go like down the anti-vax route, but
Oh,
it's just
we better
it's
stay away
adding
from that one.
it's adding a load to the system. And I think there's something to be said for that. What's called allostatic load is, it just, you get to the point and whatever this, I always talk about a Jenga tower, whatever that final piece is, for me, it was this like mold exposure, the whole system collapses and it's
Mm.
really hard to put it all back in place. Um, but I just got to this point where I almost took my own life because I was out of options, and I just had kind of an epiphany in that moment, or a little bit afterwards. Luckily, I didn't do it, but I thought to myself, okay, maybe I need to spend more time with my mind here. Maybe what I'm dealing with is really nothing. None of this physical stuff has really done much for me. Maybe this all kind of goes back to years ago with the mental side of things, and maybe that was kind of the beginning of things. And I need to look at this from a software perspective instead of a hardware perspective.
Mm.
The problem that I ran into was that we treat mental health so differently from physical health. Physical health is something that we very much feel empowered to change for the better. First of all, it's a spectrum. It's not a binary thing. We don't have a group of people that are healthy and a group of people that are unhealthy. It's a question of degree and relativity,
Mm.
from illness to fitness, right? And we're all just kind of sprinkled along that in infinite locations. And where you are on that spectrum is really up to you. It comes down to, and we know this, it comes down to what you eat, exercise, and sleep. It's like 90% of the equation. There's other
Yeah.
things, yes, of course. There's things like sunlight exposure, which do make a difference. But you can't bypass those three primary things. And a lot of people try to skip over it. Again, I'm going to dunk myself in ice water every day, and I'm going to do red light therapy, and I'm going to take all these
Yeah.
supplements. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but are you getting 8 hours of sleep? Are you exercising enough? And are you eating well? Right? Like
Right.
that is the formula. No one disputes that. And that will get you to the fitness end of the spectrum, which is a hedge against illness. But then when we look at mental health, it's a binary thing. It's this checkbox of, and you've probably gotten some kind of survey like this or something. You go to your doc and they like, there's literally like, are you having thoughts of suicide? Are you having mental health problems? Check yes or no.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
it. It's like you're either fine or you have problems. And so
Well, we talked about this like on our, in our calls before, which is like, yeah, I don't, it's like, yeah, there was times that I do have these
of
moments
course,
in the past. And it's like, so like when you say it's on a spectrum, I'm really relating to this. Like one day I can feel at rock bottom and the next day I feel like I'm doing okay,
yeah, right,
like,
right,
yeah. Anyways,
exactly.
keep going.
No, that's exactly right. And so, but what we've done is we've pathologized mental health into this binary system that treats anything other than fine or okay as a disease of some sort. It's an illness.
Mm,
Disorder is probably the closest approximation to a real thing because it is a disordered pattern of behavior, but none of it is a disease. There's no like anxiety bacteria or like depression virus or something like that you can catch out
yeah.
there. Um, and so, but by doing that, what we've told people is that the solution is treatment. So if you're dealing with a disease, then it's a treatment solution. It is pharmaceuticals, therapy. The
Yeah.
message is you can't fix yourself. Somebody else has to fix you. Something or someone has to fix you.
So can I
And
ask a question right
yeah,
here, just real quick? I guess my mind goes to, does that make it worse when we think, because I said broken earlier and you were
yeah,
quick to, you were quick to say like, no, 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 we're not broken. And I agree. It's just
yeah,
like, it's normal to say something like that. Right.
right, yeah.
So do you think that these kind of treatments are exuberating in some ways, like that this has to be like, you're broken, you need fixed? Does that exuberate that, I guess, in some ways?
Yeah, I think so. Right. Like, I mean, there's, first of all, there's certainly profit motive in that, which lends itself to the whole
Yeah.
system, of course.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, that's all part of the message. It's okay, you're broken, you're powerless, and you're powerless. And so therefore you need to have an intervention of some sort.
Yeah.
And none of that is saying that pharmaceuticals are inherently bad or that therapy is wrong. Like therapy can be great, but we
Hmm.
have to get out of this mindset of there's nothing you can do about it. That is not correct at all. I don't care how many medications you're on or how bad off you are. You have power in making yourself mentally fit. And so
Yeah.
we have to rethink this paradigm as it's just like physical health. Mental health is a spectrum that has inputs that can get you to fitness if you commit to them, right?
Yeah.
And all the same principles apply. It's something you have to do for the rest of your life, right? Like, physical fitness, it's not like you win at some point and then you don't have to work out anymore or you can just eat
Right.
crap for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It has to become habitual. And so
Yeah.
it's the same type of stuff. You have to adopt some practices to keep yourself mentally fit. You have to be more aware of these types of things it just never ends. But the reward is that you have a more happy and fulfilling life, obviously. You're people go to the gym and work out so that the rest of their life is better, right? The other 23
Yeah.
hours of the day or whatever, however much they're awake,
Yeah.
uh, is better. And it's the same thing with this, right? So that's kind of the epiphany I had. And then it was a matter of, okay, well, what do we do? How does this work? Right? Like, how do we
Well, I was going to
create?
ask that. Like,
Yeah.
you've set this up as like, we know from just this conversation, we can gather this, that we've got to treat it like physical fitness too. So where do we go from here, Chris?
Yeah. So the journey that I kind of had to go on was figuring out, all right, if I'm going to take ownership of this, then what am I doing wrong? Right? Like if I'm going to figure out how
Yeah.
to do this correctly, what am I doing incorrectly? It's like, what are the channels, so to speak, that we want to fall into here? Um, and this is over a decade of kind of work of refining this and different things. But I have this what's called the mind killers, so like mind killer framework, which are 5 key ways that we sabotage our own mental health. This is how we make ourselves mentally unfit. And they fall into kind of a 2 by 2 matrix. So if you think of a box, a square that's divided 2 by 2,
Hmm.
you have 4 boxes there, where your y-axis is time, and then your your x-axis is time, your y-axis is essentially the energy of your mind. I mean, one of the things that is, I guess, important to kind of preempt here is when we talk about mental health, we have to think about what the mind is a little bit before we even get there, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of focus these days on brain health, which is great. Like that's really important, whether it's in sports or in military circles, like that's important. Sometimes we conflate brain health with mind health, though. Your mind is not your brain. Your brain is an organ in your body, but nobody can
Mm.
point to some place in your brain and go, "There's your mind in there. That's where your
That's
sense
a
of
good
self
point.
is
Yeah.
from." Can't do that. Your mind is an energy, and it's ephemeral and it's fleeting, and it only exists in the present. The analogy I always use is, as a musician, you see it, there's a bunch of guitars on the wall here.
Yeah.
uh I don't have as cool of a backdrop as you do. I can't make it work in this room. There's a closet behind me. That's all I can do.
Yeah.
So without background, a virtual background. But the analogy I always use is, if you think of your body as a guitar, for me as a guitar player, your mind is the music, right? Like your mind is the output. And
Mm.
so we have to think about how we improve the quality of the energy itself. And that can involve better brain health for sure. There's a connection there.
Well, let's just pause there for a second. That
Mhm.
was such a great analogy
Yeah.
of what your mind is to your brain. So when you say the energy piece,
Yeah.
like our mind is either playing bad music, good music, or right,
Right.
like there's a spectrum there from the music that we're playing in our mind. That's going to stick with me for a long time,
Yeah.
Chris. That's
Right.
good.
Right.
That's
So
really
how do you
good.
make the music better? You make it better through, you can have a nicer instrument, right? So like, yes, brain health, that's physical health these also aren't separate things. It's not mental health and physical health and never the twixt shall meet. There's an
Right.
interchange here. That's another really important thing. And another
Mm.
problem we have in this country about these things is we have completely separate realms that we deal with. Like physical health, you go to the doctor and you're purely talking about physical health, and you go to a psychiatrist and you're purely talking about, and it's never like, hey, I'm depressed. Well, what are you eating?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a relationship there, and that's
Right.
a really important piece to it too. But yeah, getting back to the instrument thing, it's like, well, you can have a nicer instrument. You can also learn to play it better. And so we're talking about sort of learning how to play it better, right? This is going to
That's
create
good.
better
It's
music.
really good.
Um, and it's not a perfect analogy, but it's close enough. Uh, and So anyway, so what we're talking about is the energy there. So getting back to this kind of matrix idea with the mind killers, you're dealing with energy that exists in the present, but often is going to the past or the future, right? We're either dwelling on something in the past, or we're like envisioning, catastrophizing about the future. So we need to worry
Yeah.
about where the energy lives in terms of where where the spotlight's kind of focused from a temporal standpoint. But then we
Mm.
also need to think about, is it like a cognitive energy, or is it an emotional energy, right? Like what are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with something we're sort of thinking, rationalizing about, or is it more of a sort of primal kind of emotional feeling? Those things
Yeah.
aren't necessarily different things either. That's kind of a spectrum question too, and there's cultures that don't separate between thoughts and feelings. For practical purposes, certainly in Western society, it helps to separate those things a little bit. Just so, like, I found it helps to do that. So anyway, so if you overlay kind of those things, you in those boxes, you end up with a thinking past, a feeling past, a feeling future, and a thinking future, right? Those are the four boxes that are there. And then a sort of overlay of it. And those mind killers apply there. So you have Oblivion, which is in the center, overlays the entire thing, which deals with a lack of awareness. You're just not aware of anything that's going on. You have no idea what your mind is doing at any time. You have no idea what your emotions are doing at any time. You're sort of like wrapped up in it and you're not able to observe it objectively. Then you've got storytelling, which is basically an interpretation of past events. We spin negative, as much as I don't like that term, destructive, harmful stories about our memories, based around our memories. Okay. Right. So this is our thinking past. And then you have suppression, which is not dealing with emotions from the past either. So we spend a lot of time stuffing emotions in. We're just like, I'm not going to deal with this right now. I'm just going to like suppress that. Then you've got fear, which is future-based emotion, anxiety, catastrophizing, hypervigilance, and then stagnation, which is a thinking future, which is essentially being the same today as you were yesterday. Like you're just not growing at all. You don't have a growth mindset. So those are 5 mind killers.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to repeat those in a second, but I just want to state something, because as you were stating those, I'm picturing this box, and you had Oblivion in the middle, right? And I just want to point out that these are mind killers. So in this box, there's nothing pointing towards, right now anyways, there's nothing pointing towards, here's the opposite of that. We're just saying these are the mind killers.
Right. Yes.
That we deal with that put us in a bad mental state. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and repeat them again, because I think it's really important of what you're talking about right now.
Yeah. Let me give a little bit of context to where this comes from too. So some people do pick up on this, but the term itself comes from Dune. So if you've read the book Dune by Frank Herbert, or you've seen the recent, or maybe one of the old movie adaptations or the newer ones, there's a thing called the Litany Against Fear in there, which is the protagonist, Paul Atreides. It's his mother in the movie version, but he's undergoing this crucible where this kind of monk sisterhood called the Bene Gesserit has him put his hand in this box that just makes it like excruciatingly painful. And the test is he can't pull it out, or she's got this dagger this like needle dagger thing to his neck that she's going to kill him. And it's just a test of like, it's a test of humanity, essentially. It's not like a pain tolerance thing. It's like, can you override this instinct to pull this hand out of the box and just deal with it in the moment, right? And so they recite this thing called the Litany Against Fear, and it is, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that leads to a total obliteration. It goes on. But the notion there, the idea is that fear is this instinct that is designed to keep you alive, but the longer that goes on, the more detrimental it can actually be and put you in a worse circumstance, because it means you're not acting rationally, you're not thinking about things. And when I read that, I thought, that's my problem. That's a big part of this problem. Not acute fear, not combat, and you're fearful there. Chronic fear, anxiety, hypervigilance. That is a big part of my issue. And there's nuances there that I talk about, like in my writing and in the book and everything. Cause like fear is like you really can pick it apart, and like where it's useful, where it's not, how it helps you, how it doesn't help you, emotion versus rationality, all this kind of stuff. So when I zeroed in on that, it was like, okay, that is part of the problem, but that's not everything, sort of like the mental toughness thing. And so I had to kind of expand that and be like, what are the other mind killers I'm dealing with? And so, so if you look at that matrix again, Oblivion is the central one. That is lack of awareness. That's in the center. Storytelling, suppression, fear, and stagnation are the 5.
Okay. Well, I think it'd be good to dive into these. So give me the main purpose of this framework and how we are to not only perceive it, but how we're to use it. Is this so that we have our own awareness of what's killing our mind in a way? Is that the main purpose of it then?
Yeah. So basically, what the purpose of it is so that you can look at anything that's going on mentally and essentially put it into one of those buckets, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what am I dealing with here? Is this going back to the energy part? Like, okay, it's your mind. It's an energy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
In this moment, or maybe chronically, what am I dealing with? Is it a thinking energy problem? Is it a feeling energy? Is it a thinking energy problem or feeling energy problem? And then where's it located? Is it a thinking about the past? Is it a thinking about the future? Is it a feeling about the past? Is it a feeling about the future?
Mm.
Right. And so it's helping sort of separate that, because from there, then I've got this, what's called the arrow framework, which is how you then overcome these things. Right. So how you counteract their countermeasures, the mind killers. And so I've got a specific countermeasure for each one of these, and then exercises under each one that help you sort of train that aptitude.
Okay, so let's keep the audience on the hook. Me too. Okay, because I have not been through the arrow framework. Well, let's
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
them on the hook. Let's dive into this four box
Yep.
with the five mind kill. I should just call them the five mind killers. Let's
Yep.
dive
Fine.
into these just real quick. What do you mean when you say oblivion?
So oblivion is, people are probably familiar with the word oblivious, right? You say someone is oblivious. It means they're
Yeah,
unaware. They're not tracking what's going on. It's like they're just like lost in thought or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they're just not with it. Completely
yeah.
oblivious. This happened, and the guy was completely oblivious. Like didn't even notice it, right? So the state of oblivion, when in regards to your mind, is you have no awareness of what's going on with your mind. You're wrapped up in it, meaning you're identified with it, right? So like everything
Mm,
that's going on internally is, you're just like stuck in it. You're like lost in that state, and you're lacking the ability to objectively look at it, and not with just your thoughts, but your emotions. And that's why it overlays the entire construct here, right? So
yeah.
until you can take a step back, because we as humans have a unique capacity, at least we think, within nature, certainly on Earth, we have an ability called metacognition, which means we can observe our experience, right? So,
Yeah.
in terms of consciousness, which is a big mystery, it's not sort of like the mental health thing. It's not a yes no thing. A dog has some level of consciousness, meaning it's having an experience. If you look at a dog, clearly there's something going on there, right? It's not a
Hmm.
robot. It's
Right.
got, but more than likely, it doesn't know it's having an experience. And that is the unique piece that we believe, anyway, humans have. We can say, I
Yeah.
know I'm having an experience, and I can create a duality where a dog or any other animal does not have that.
Yeah.
Because we have that ability, we can separate ourselves from our internal dialogue or our internal feelings, whatever that looks like. That energy that's producing our sense of self, our experience, is something we can take a step back from and observe. So instead of being, if you think of like a river, the stream of consciousness, instead of being just in the river, stuck in the river, you can sort of step onto the banks of the river and look at the river. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Exactly.
that is removing yourself from a state of oblivion into a state of awareness, which is, the sort of, I call the chatter. And I talk about the nature of thought when I kind of get into this initially in kind of the book and things like that. Is a lot of people, many people conflate. We say we're thinking about something. We use the term thought. We say thinking, and we're conflating two things there. You can actively think about something, which is what I'm doing here in this conversation. Or if you're working on something, you're consciously directing your attention towards something. But then while that's going on, there's all these like random thoughts that are just showing up in your head. Just this stream of like,
Yeah.
that just percolates the surface.
Yep.
And most people combine those things. They conflate all of that as if it's one and the same, and it's not. One is conscious attention. The other is just unconscious, like
Mm.
chatter, because that's what it is.
Got it. Yeah.
It's like chirping in your head. And
Yeah.
that's the stuff that tends to drag you down. Because what you do is
Can
you latch onto it and you go, oh, I got to take that seriously. That thought that's like, oh, you're nothing, you'll never amount to something, or, whatever that shows up, you go, oh, you're right. And, you know, you don't
Yeah.
have to
No,
do it.
as I'm listening to you talk about this, so is it fair to say that Oblivion could then also be, I have this negative thought, but I can't even clearly tell you what the negative thought is. It's almost like there's a feeling attached to this negative thought. And so
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't feel like I amount to anything today. And I can't tell you why. So is
Yes.
that Oblivion then?
Yeah, I would say that's a little bit of a step in the right direction, because there's at least an awareness there of, okay, this is
Okay.
showing up, right? So like
Yeah.
that's a step. In fact, that's a pretty big step actually, because most people don't even ever make it that far. And I'm one of them. I mean, like this is a notion that never occurred to me. No one taught me until I was in my mid 40s. Right. And it's
Right.
like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't have to pay attention to every thought that shows up in my head. Like I don't have to take that stuff seriously.
No, that's a good point. Yeah,
And
that's a great point.
it's wild, because that notion, this is not new information. This is a central tenet of traditions like Buddhism and Stoicism. This is stuff that's been around for eons. But people either don't know about those traditions, or they aren't putting them into practice. And it's so interesting to me. It's one of these things that I just don't get. It would have been such valuable information for someone to tell me at some point in my life. You probably, as a little kid, it wouldn't make any sense to you. But at some point, probably my teenage years, for someone to kind of sit me down and say, hey, you do a little bit of meditation every day and learn to objectively observe your thoughts, that's going to pay huge dividends for you down the road.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is probably a good point to put this, is like, at one point or another, one of the most important things that our pediatrician had told us was, your kids writing about their day is so important,
Yeah,
because they
sure.
reflect and journal about it. And she didn't know all these things, or at least she didn't have your framework of the five mind killers, but she understood that reflection was really good because it helps you work through your emotions and the things that you may not or know that you're thinking. Okay, so thank you for rolling through those things, but I don't want to roll past some of these. So
Yeah.
there's a few that I still feel like need some explanation. So you said storytelling.
Yep.
This is one of the mind killers. So storytelling sounds great by itself. So explain why it's a mind killer then.
Yeah. That's a good point, right? It does sound like a positive thing, and it can be, certainly, sort of in the abstract of the definition we would apply there. So our first step is we have to become less oblivious, right? We have to generate this awareness of just kind of unconscious chatter that's going on, and realize it's just like a Spotify playlist or a YouTube algorithm that's just feeding you crap at all times, being like, are you going to pay attention to this? Are you going to pay attention to this? Exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Hey, yes, you can if you want, but you don't have to. You can just go, nope, next song, next video, whatever, right? Or, hey, I really like that. That's really useful. That's going to teach me something. Ooh, that's a good point. It's not all valuable information. No, most of it is garbage that you don't have to pay attention to. So that's kind of step one. So then it's like, okay, a lot of these thoughts, again, they take you into the future or the past, right? They're taking you out of the present moment. That's what it's doing all the time. Yet despite that, like, we only exist in the present moment, right? Like the thought itself exists in the present moment, but is yanking you into some sort of imagined thing about the past.
Yeah.
And so can that be good? Sure, it can be. But a lot of times what we do is if we're stuck on some kind of past thing, like where we have a regret or we feel shame about something, or we have some like trauma or something like that, it is because we've developed this story around something that happened to us in our lives. And when you do that, like that, people get like, trauma is such a great example. It's just like something like, I'll never get over this. Like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and it totally changed me, and that kind of thing. The realization that's important there is it's not the memory that's the problem. It's the story you tell around that memory that's a problem. First of all, memory is
Mm,
really inaccurate to begin with, and it's pretty sparse. Like we think we remember
yeah.
our entire lives, and we remember a fraction of a percentage of our own lives. But we we like to be the star of our own show. So you sort of have this story of your life, right? Like we human beings, we like to tell stories. They help us kind of make sense of things because meaning is really important to us. It like gives us a why around like things. It's not just and then and this and then this and then this. It's like, well, there's a
Yeah.
purpose and there's a narrative around that. And that can be really helpful. But when you have this kind of chink in the sequence there that throws that off, you end up altering the story to your detriment in a lot of ways, right? And
Hmm.
that becomes it can become part of your identity. So you can have something where you fail at something and it's like, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. That doesn't fit the narrative here. I'm no longer the hero in this. And then it goes from not only I failed, I screwed up to I am a failure, right?
Yeah.
And moving forward, now I'm going to define myself this way. And I spent so much time on this kind of thing, just telling these stories to myself, eventually realizing like these are just stories. Like, this is not,
Yeah.
these aren't facts. This is an interpretation of events that
Yeah.
where I am the author, I am the actor, and I am the audience. It is one person. No one else is
Right.
doing this. No one else is forcing me to do this. I'm purely beating myself up for no reason over and over and over
Mm,
again, right? And so the ability to reframe those stories is really, really important. And we see this in a lot of, there are people out there who have suffered immense tragedy and are real victims of assault or war, that kind of thing. Physically, amputees or burn victims or whatever. And there's people who, or, get kidnapped and like held hostage for months or years.
yeah.
These people come out of this and they could be wrecked for the rest of their lives. And there's countless examples of people who have taken that moment and turned it into some defining thing for good, where it's like they help other people and it's, you know what I mean? And all
Hmm.
that is a shift in perspective. That's all it is. It's just
Yeah.
saying, hey, this horror, and it's not saying the thing didn't happen or the thing wasn't horrible. It's this horrible thing happened to me and I'm actually stronger as a result of it and I'm turning this into a force for good. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever that might look like.
Yeah.
Um and those are kind of big examples, but there's little stories we tell ourselves all the time that limit our potential. Things like I'm just not a numbers person. I'm not very good with names. You hear that one all the time, right? I'm not very good with
Yeah.
names.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's nonsense. There's not like a bad with names gene or something like that. You just made up a story, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
my my son, when he was like in grade school, was struggling with spelling, and he yelled at our kitchen table one night, like, "I'm just not good at spelling." I was like, "Whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Nope, don't. You don't do that. You're adopting an identity now of being a
Yeah.
bad speller."
Yeah.
Not true. You just got to work a little bit harder on it, right? So
Yeah. No,
that's
that's
that's the storytelling piece.
no, I appreciate, yeah, moving through that because the other three. So you just went over Oblivion, you went over storytelling, and obviously we don't have time to go in all these because I want to
Yeah.
get to the Arrow acronym, but stagnation, fear, and suppression. I think we have a general sense of what all those are.
Hmm.
But if there was something that stuck out in one of those that isn't as clear as you think they are, is there one other one that you would maybe go into quickly?
Yeah. I mean, just a brief overview on that. So moving past the storytelling with the suppression pieces, you have to learn how to regulate your emotions, especially emotional energy that you keep stored inside of you. And especially for alpha types like me, we have this real tendency to bottle up emotional energy,
Yeah.
especially sorrowful emotional energy. Like I'm not going to cry ever. Right. Uh, and that's really destructive, very harmful physiologically, mentally. And so we have to learn how to regulate that. The regulation is the countermeasure there. That's the second R, right? So awareness, reframing, regulation. And then the fear piece, The fear piece can be a little bit tricky for people to understand because the countermeasure there is openness, but it has to do with the fact that like we put on kind of emotional armor a lot, and we're on this in this protection mode where we're not
Yeah.
vulnerable at all. And it's the same type of thing where you're training your body that it's always in danger, in your mind as well. And that has really negative repercussions on, again, your physiology, and can make it so you can't think clearly because there is physiology baked into that of like true threats to your, your somatic makeup. Um, that's evolutionary, like built into you. So it's kind of like developing. It's hard to understand for a lot of people, but if I went into it more, it's just developing this like openness of not closing yourself off. I think the
Yeah.
stagnation piece is the one where it's a little bit different than other frameworks. So there's a lot of like mindfulness things out there that talk about all those other things in some form from an introspection standpoint. To me, the stagnation piece is really important because if you're talking about holistic mental fitness, it can't just be achieving this Zen like sense of enlightenment. It is also, can you make yourself smarter? Can you develop new skills? What things can you understand? Can you become a better
Mm.
problem solver? Can you be more creative? So it is, okay, you've got this Ferrari of an engine here. If you can get things tuned up where you're not always lost in thought and where you're processing your emotions correctly, what else can you do with it? Because
Yeah.
unlike physical health, this is where these things diverge a little bit. You can do a lot of stuff to keep yourself healthy throughout life, but your body will decline over time. You are not going to be
Yeah.
at your peak. You're not going to be as fit as an 80-year-old as you could have been as a 25-year-old, no matter who you
Right. Yeah.
are, until science really steps up to the plate here. But cognitively, you can be smarter, more skilled, better problem solver. This is why we say wisdom comes with age. Typically, in cultures, the
Yeah.
smartest, wisest people were the oldest people, right?
Mm.
And most people don't do that. We get done with schooling and we just don't learn anything anymore, and we give up hobbies, and you spend your entire middle age years not learning anything. You literally don't. I mean,
Yeah.
other than like sort of job requirements or skill sets involved in job.
Yeah. This is an interesting topic. So, well, I think of like when people say you only use like what, 2 or 3% of your
Yeah,
brain, they
yeah,
say
I
like
don't know
at
the
max
exact. Yeah,
10%, whatever it is.
yeah,
But they're, then we look at things like dementia and things like this, and it's like go back to the physical side. They're starting to link a lot of that to physicality now, right?
mhm,
So
yeah,
there's a lot of that. So when you're talking about stagnation, then what's the main what's the main thing about stagnation? Because that one, now that I'm thinking about it more, that one is kind of a little bit harder to understand. So what is stagnation? Is that we're not learning about ourselves? We're not learning about how to, or
yeah.
what would you
I would
say?
say it is the capacity of your mind is the same, or your capabilities, mental capabilities, are the same tomorrow as they were today. You're waking
Yeah.
up and it's
Okay.
no different than it was yesterday, right? You haven't
Yeah.
brought on
Okay.
any new information. Not really. You've like watched a lot of YouTube videos and watched various media outlets, and like that's how you've filled up the neurons in your brain, right? But you're not like reading a book or learning how to play an instrument or learning how to do some other skill set out there, or like,
Yeah.
it's that type of stuff. And I just think it's so important. It just makes you a more capable person. It keeps you younger from a mental perspective. Um, and and again, I think it's a place where some of these mindfulness practices fall short. Again, just
Yeah.
you're going to talk about mental fitness. That's part of it for sure. You know,
So, okay, so you've actually walked us a little bit through Arrow
yeah,
by showing us what's the antithesis, if you will, or
yeah, correct,
the
yeah,
way to, yeah. So let's go through this real quick. So you told us the 5 mind killers, starting with Oblivion. So go around the square real quick. So
yep.
Oblivion.
Storytelling,
Hmm.
suppression, fear, stagnation. That is the
Okay.
order. Yep.
Okay. And really appreciate the definitions here, because I'm sitting here, I'm sure other people listening are doing the same thing I'm doing, which is I'm like, wait a minute, where did I get stuck in my own mind in these areas? And
Yeah.
every single one of them, I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely remember a time. Or there was there was one in particular, and I would say storytelling for me is like where I'm like, I get stuck in the past or future on storytelling all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, oh, you'll never amount to anything. Your voice is never going to be powerful
Right.
enough,
Yes.
or in the past, like you said, you get back in the past and you're like, see, remember when that happened? Do you remember that happened? It's like, oh my goodness, dude,
Yep.
just stop. So now Arrow is really showing us what's the antithesis of this. So go through Arrow for
Yep.
us, starting with what the, obviously Oblivion, and then what's the
Yep.
way to
Right.
work towards
Yeah.
better,
And the,
right?
and the way the way to think about this is that Arrow framework. I mean, it is this acronym because it's hopefully easy to remember, right? So if you forget these things, it's like if you just think of Arrow, it's a
Yeah.
lot easier. I like it too because arrow is a direction. So to me, it like represents a direction. So it's pointing you in the right direction.
Oh, clever. I like this,
And
Chris. Very
and
clever.
it's a weapon. So it's something to defeat the mind killers, battle the mind killers, right? So coming from kind of a warrior class, it just helps kind of think
Yeah.
about that. Like this is your weapon and it's pointing you in the right direction. So
Yeah, I love that.
um so awareness is the countermeasure to oblivion. And you can also think of them, sorry, as like the same way in physical health, you train strength and you train flexibility and endurance. It's the same kind of idea. Those countermeasures sort of
Yeah.
represent the channels that you have to develop. Awareness is your oblivion countermeasure. Reframing is the storytelling countermeasure, right? New vantage
Yeah,
point
makes
on things.
sense.
Regulation is the suppression countermeasure. So it's learning to move emotional energy and not store it in various
Okay.
ways. Openness against fear, and then wonder is the last one against stagnation. So it's a growth mindset, curiosity, right? Just like maintaining that sort of childlike sense of wonder.
Yeah. Okay. So I got a lot of questions here,
Okay.
and we do have some time left, which is great because I think right now is like the climax of like, yes, let's figure out
Right.
what this means. So reframing on the storytelling, or actually let's start there. So awareness on the oblivion. So
Mhm.
oblivion was, that essentially that we're not aware. So becoming more aware.
Yep.
On each one of these, can you just give us like some, like 1 to 2 takeaways of how we do this well, and
Yeah.
we'll just work around the circle. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear it
So,
from your.
so I write about this stuff on a Substack, but I've got a book that's forthcoming, which lays out this
Oh
entire
yeah,
framework.
we're
So
excited for this book,
I got to
Chris,
throw the
and
book
we're
on
going to
here.
have your website and some of your Substack of those articles in the show notes, so
Yep.
people can get straight to them. So
So I've always wanted this to be actionable because, in my estimation, so many things. Theory's great. That's nice. Like I understand all that theoretically, but what do I actually do about it?
yeah,
With that in mind, every single one of these countermeasures, I have 5 distinct exercises to support developing that ability. Awareness is basically, it's all around various meditative practices, but I step people through it in a way that I think is much more approachable for folks. People can get turned off by meditation because they misunderstand it. They feel like it doesn't apply to them. I think it can also be daunting. I think some of the meditative practices out there kind of start too aggressive or too advanced. And
okay,
so I have a process where I start really slow, where we're like creating mental space before we even get to meditation. And then we're working on literally just sitting and doing nothing for stretches of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Like, how often do people just not do anything? Like, never,
right, yeah,
never.
yeah,
So
yeah,
no one's bored ever anymore. And
yeah.
you need that kind of mental space to be able to look at it. And then I walk people through how to like actually how to sense the feeling of focus, like what focus actually feels like. And then we finally kind of get to meditation, but it's all built on like a stair step into being able to objectively look at your thoughts. So those
And so reflection is kind of that ability to sit and think, but then meditation is where you're focusing on something.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to do is if we're going to observe our thoughts to create that sort of third party objective observer um, state, we need to be able to do two things. We need to be able to focus on something and then notice when our mind takes us away from it. So to
Mm,
me, meditation is literally a practice in just those things. It is
okay.
focusing on something in the present that's sensory, what you see even with your eyes closed, like what you're the darkness there, what you're hearing, people use their breath, and then you notice when your mind goes somewhere else. The
Yeah.
problem for most people, especially as you start, is that your mind will take you somewhere and you're not aware of it. And then
Mm,
it could be like minutes later where you finally realize I'm not focused on the thing I'm supposed to be focused on.
yeah.
That gap is oblivion. And that's where most people are all the time, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Hey, I'm a Christian and I'll go to pray and it's like I literally get off focus within
Yeah.
a few seconds of praying. I'm just like,
Yes.
why am I even thinking about that? I'm trying to focus here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, no doubt. Okay, so that's the A for arrow and then the
Yep.
R is reframing.
Reframing.
That's the
Yep.
first R.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so reframing, we bring in various, and through the kind of construct I have, I'm bringing in all these elements in a very ordered way that right now I think are really disparate. So there's kind of meditation stuff out there, there's breathwork stuff out there, there's journaling, but it's not like systematic in any way. And
Right.
I've really tried to make this systematic. So then with reframing, as you might think, we bring in journaling into that. So we then take a lot of these things that we're noticing going on in our mind and we're journaling about them to sort of understand what the patterns are. Okay,
Yeah.
what does this chatter say all the time? Because most
Hmm.
people don't even know. Even if you become aware of it, it's like, okay, now we need some pattern recognition here. So then
Yeah.
it's figuring out what's that saying all the time and how can I flip that, And then how can I build in some practices where I'm preemptively journaling some things down to reframe anything I'm doing, usually from a position of gratitude. Can I find
Mm,
the sort of silver lining
yeah.
in a lot of things? Not always possible, but almost every day, even the worst day you have, like a really quote unquote bad day, you can find something that you're grateful for. Probably multiple things, actually. You know,
Oh, yeah. How I guess like we live in the United States, me and you both do. It's like we could find something, no doubt,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like we could find something. Yeah.
Yeah, yep,
Okay, so then reframing, and you talk about journaling, talk
yep.
about finding that gratitude piece, and then it goes into regulation.
Regulation. So now we're bringing that same awareness. We are getting away from sort of cognitive energy into the emotional energy that we feel. So that you're bringing that same awareness to how do I feel about some of this stuff? Like even reviewing some of that stuff from your journal. When I go through
Yeah,
that, how does that make me feel? Right. And getting
yeah,
really granular about it too. Very specific on that. And where do I feel it too? That is the other thing. I mean, there's a whole piece of this about how we store emotional energy in different parts of our bodies. And I could get into the neuroscience aspect of this, but it's learning how to then move that in. So the bunch of this is just learning to be expressive in a way that's acceptable, I guess, right? Like that's
yes.
appropriate to the circumstance.
Is that why my back hurts all the time when my wife's mad at me?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah. There's a
that
lot
might
of
be
that
it?
actually. There's a lot of people who have back problems who go to the doctor and it's like, well, there's nothing really wrong with your back, and it probably does have something to do with that. Honestly,
Yeah,
it is. So anyway, so it's learning. Certainly if you're someone like me who suppressed like 20 years of sorrow for fallen teammates and things like that, you got to learn to
yeah,
move that stuff in ways. But then I also do a lot of practices, breathwork practices that just kind of support healthy energy movement in general, right? So you're working on kind of your nervous system, which is a very neglected part of people's bodies for the most part, of allowing it to move energy more appropriately.
well, that's okay. So that's interesting because you're going into the physical
Mhm.
part of it as well
Yeah.
because you talk about how they interconnect.
Yeah.
I think of like when I'm the most stressed out, I haven't blinked and I haven't breathed well.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yes.
that's something that I feel. I'm just like, oh my goodness, just close your eyes and breathe. Like you'll be fine.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. So that's so, and there's some other practices associated with that, various breathing techniques. The openness kind of builds on that with some more breathing stuff that's aimed at preemptively making your nervous system so it doesn't freak out as much, and then
Yeah.
brings in some visualization as well. So we sort of like focus on like the way we want future events to potentially play out, and just kind of almost like mentally rehearsing things so that regardless of what happens you're sort of better prepared for it, and you're not catastrophizing all the time. So that's that. And then the on the wonder side of it, it's honestly it's probably the easiest in terms of like the understanding of it. It's things like reading books, like actual books. It's having a hobby, something
Mm.
that you're building a skill every day. There's sort of puzzles and games that are associated with it. I talk about creating a mission statement for yourself to give yourself kind of a north star that supports growth. And so it's
Yeah.
it's things like that.
Okay. And so wonder, one of the things I thought of was, a belief, if you will. Like what do
Mhm.
you believe in? How do you I also thought about like imagination. Like as we grow up, we lose our imagination of what's
Yep.
possible.
Yep.
Um, isn't it great? I'm too young for this, but I love the thought of being a grandpa one day, right?
I
Um,
don't know if I so I don't how you have kids, obviously.
yeah,
How old are your
yeah.
kids?
So my daughter's 11 and my son's 9,
Okay.
and so I don't want grandkids now, obviously.
Yeah. Well, my oldest is 18. He's in college and he's got a girlfriend, and like it's
Yeah.
like I don't want grandkids yet. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I think about wonder as like when you hear a child say what's on their mind,
Yes.
it's like adopting that kind of mindset is just amazing,
Hmm.
right? The
Yeah.
wonder piece. Now I'm just trying to relate to some of this because as you're going through it, I'm relating to it and I'm also like thinking about how am I going to be able to use this arrow acronym, and it's so useful. So as we wrap up this portion, then we're going to go into rapid
Yep.
fire. So I hope you have your favorite
I do.
movie,
Yeah.
quote, all
I'm
that.
good. I'm good.
Okay. Um, what would you leave with the audience? Like, if you were to give them a message, in a one or two sentences, what's something that you want to leave with the audience with the information that they heard today?
Yeah. I mean, my kind of overarching message to anybody out there is regardless of where you may find yourself on the mental health spectrum, you're not broken and you're not powerless and you're not alone. I think that is the most important message we can give to anybody out there when they're dealing with stuff. I don't care how messed up you think you are, you're not diseased or anything like that. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not saying throw all your medication in the garbage and don't stop going to your therapist or something like that. That stuff can be helpful, but you have immense power at your disposal to make yourself more mentally fit if you're willing to do the work. And that work is available, and it's not that hard either. That's the other thing. Like, don't you
Yeah.
we don't want to be daunted by these things. There's things you can do. I have a whole series of short routines, and you're talking about 3 times a day, 5 to 10 minutes. That's it,
Yeah.
right? And
That's
even
good.
one time a day for 5 minutes is better than nothing.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And again, we appreciate your service. We appreciate you taking your own journey and putting it into a vulnerable story to where you now have a framework that literally shares it with the world. And I'm looking forward to your book. We won't ask for a date because I've heard you're just not
Yeah,
supposed to
don't do
ask
that. Don't do
authors
that.
for dates. Don't ask them for dates. But there is a Chris Irwin book coming, and it's literally everything that we talked about and so much more. And so I know it's going to be just so useful to everyone. So thank you again, Chris. Now let's go to rapid fire round.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So this is how we get real personal here. Okay. So favorite movie.
Gladiator. And just to put some, I love that movie, man. When I first when I first had an apartment in San Diego years ago, early on in the military, it was like the only movie I had on VHS, and I didn't even have any furniture. I had a TV and like a VHS, and I
Yeah.
watched for the first few weeks I was in my apartment. I watched it every single night because I had no cable, and I
Yes.
watched it with my kids, my boys. I have 3 boys. They're now old enough to watch that. We watched it, and it's one of those things you're like, "Oh, are they gonna like this? I hope." And they were all like, "That was awesome." Like my oldest son was like, "It's my new favorite movie." I'm like, yes, love this.
Yes. Yeah. Russell Crowe. He's
Oh,
amazing
he's
in that
awesome.
movie.
He's
So
awesome in this
amazing.
movie.
And I just want to say, since a Navy SEAL says that that's his favorite movie, I feel so much better to say that's in my top 5. I wasn't sure if it was cheesy or not. I thought it
Oh,
was
it's awesome.
amazing.
It is awesome.
Amazing movie.
Yep.
Good. All right, we got a lot in common here already. And one movie puts us a lot in a common,
Yep.
a lot of
Yep.
common, right? Favorite quote.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Okay, now tell me why this quote. That's really good.
I just love
Who
it.
said this?
Yeah, I just love that notion, and it comes up so often for me just in real life. It's like how whatever you do in the smallest of circumstances is a microcosm of how you operate the rest of your time. So it's like if you
Mm,
cheat on your taxes, you cheat in tons of other places in
yeah,
life, right? If you lie to your family, you lie to everybody else out there too, right?
yeah,
If you just kind of go through the motions and don't put in the work, that's how you operate. So
yeah.
you can't think like, well, I act this way over here with in this one circumstance, but I don't really do that. Oh, that's not true, And so
That's
I think
good.
of it a lot because anything I'm doing in life, I'm like, I better make sure that that's how I operate everywhere else too.
No, I love that. So how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yep.
That's a solid quote. And this is not contributed to anybody. Like,
It's a good question. I got it from Ben Bergeron, who's a friend of mine. He ran CrossFit New England forever. Now it's Comp Train. I don't know
oh,
if he
okay.
came up with it. He probably stole it from somebody else, but I don't know who it's attributed to.
Oh, let's go ahead and give him
I'll
the
give
yeah.
it attributed to
We'll
Ben.
give it to him. We'll
Yeah,
give it to him.
yeah.
If you were to go back and tell yourself something 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
Well, one would be everything that I've talked about today. It would be all.
Give yourself the future information.
I would hand myself. Well, honestly, that is true. I would
Yeah.
hand myself a copy of this book that I'm putting together because it would have saved me so much pain. And that is kind of the point: is that
Yeah.
giving that information to people so they don't have to go through all of that. The other thing, honestly, is I would say spend more time with your kids. And that's not to
Mm,
say I haven't spent time with my kids, but it's just you'll find this out as soon as they get old enough where they about to move out or they move out and go to college. It's like, if you could double the amount of time that you spend with them, you would
yeah.
do it. So it's like every second that you can spend with your kids, you will not regret.
Yeah. That's really good. Well, again, Chris, thanks for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your past stories, and we really appreciate having you on today.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, that wraps things up for us today. Thanks for joining us. Join us next time where we continue to learn together how to develop ourselves and the people around us. Please don't forget to share this podcast, and we'll see you next time.